Confession of the Executioner, Part 1. They call me many things. Butcher, hangman, tormentor of men. But in truth, I am but a servant of order, a shadow beneath the gallows where justice feeds on flesh and bone. You ask of me the methods by which men and women are broken in the Middle Ages, and I shall tell you, not as a scholar writes in some dry book, but as one who smelled the iron of blood upon the morning air, who heard the cries, the prayers, and the silence that always followed. I have been the hand that delivers the verdict of kings, priests, and lords. If sin is a weight, then my shoulders are heavy indeed. But if death is a language, then I am fluent. Listen, then, to the tongue of the blade, the rope, the fire, and the wheel. The simplest is hanging. It is the common man's end. The rope coiled like a serpent about his neck, waiting for the drop. I have fitted many nooses, my hands steady while the condemned trembled. Some went quietly, whispering prayers to a God who did not answer. Others thrashed like hooked fish, kicking and choking, their eyes bulging, their tongues swelling purple. I learned long ago that a quick drop breaks the neck clean, mercifully swift. But not all gallows are so kind. Many a poor thief has dangled for long minutes, clawing at the air while his soul fled slowly through strangled breath. The crowd always watched, some with pity, some with jeers, some with a morbid hunger that no feast could sate. Hanging is no spectacle for nobles. It is for cut purses, deserters, and murderers of low station. And yet I tell you, there is no cruelty quite like the slow dance of a man on the rope. More gruesome still is beheading. A noble's death, they call it, though I have seen noble blood spill no less red upon the straw. The condemned kneels, their neck bared to the edge of my axe or sword. I am judged not only for delivering justice, but for my precision. A clean strike is mercy. A clumsy one is shame. I remember the face of a countess once, condemned for treason. She was pale as snow, yet she met my gaze with eyes of steel. I swung true, and her head fell in a single stroke, her lips still forming a prayer as it rolled across the scaffold. But not all were so fortunate. There was a man, a lord accused of witchcraft, whose neck resisted my blade. 3 blows it took, and with each one the crowd grew restless, their cries pressing upon me like stones. By the 4th swing the head was severed, but my reputation was stained. Even I could not sleep that night. Fire is the tool of the church, and it is fire that lingers longest in memory. To burn a man alive is not justice. It is a spectacle of faith and fear. Heretics, witches, those who consorted with the devil. I have bound them to stakes while the priests chanted and the mob spat curses. I lit the pyre myself more than once, though I took no joy in it. The flames crawl first at the feet, devouring cloth and flesh, while the condemned screams turn to shrieks that pierce even the holiest hymns. The air fills with the stench of burning hair and skin, and the eyes of the dying bulge with terror, reflecting the firelight like mirrors of hell. Some, mercifully, inhale the smoke and perish quickly. Others burn for what feels an eternity, until only charred husks remain. I tell you true, of all the deaths I have delivered, fire is the cruelest. The wheel, the breaking will, that is a tool of pure torment. I recall the first time I was ordered to wield it. The condemned was a bandit chief, guilty of murder and robbery. They laid him on the ground, spread his limbs upon the spokes of a great wheel, and I, with a heavy iron cudgel, smashed bone after bone. Arms, legs, ribs, each crack echoed like a drumbeat of doom. He howled until his voice broke, until only a gurgling remained. Then they lashed him to the wheel upright. His shattered body twisted like a grotesque puppet, left to die slowly in the sun. The crows came first, plucking at his eyes. Children were brought to see, to learn the price of wickedness. I saw not justice that day, but cruelty dressed as law. The wheel leaves a man less than human, a living carcass upon display. Drowning, too, has its place. Not the quiet drowning of rivers and lakes, but the judgment of the sack. A thief or an adulteress may be sown into a sack with stones, then cast into the waters. The weight drags them down, their muffled screams lost beneath the surface. There were whispers once of a Roman custom, to sow a man with beasts, a dog, a cock, a snake, and a monkey, and drown them all together. In my time we had no such extravagance, but the cold grip of the water claimed many. Drowning is not swift. It is panic and despair, the lungs burning, the desperate struggle until darkness closes in. Of all deaths, it is the most silent, leaving only ripples upon the water's skin. Then there is drawing and quartering, reserved for traitors, the foulest crime against crown and country. It begins with hanging, but not to death. No, only to the edge of it, the traitor's tongue lolling, his body convulsing. Then he is cut down, laid bare, and his belly opened before the crowd, entrails pulled steaming into the air. I have seen hearts lifted high by the hands of surgeons, still quivering, as the mob roared approval. And if he yet lives, his body is then divided. 4 limbs tied to 4 horses, urged in opposite directions until flesh and sinew tear apart. Sometimes the horses falter, and it falls to me with axe and blade to finish what they could not. At last, the severed parts are displayed upon gates and bridges, grim warnings against treason. This is no execution. It is a ritual of terror, a feast for the eyes of the vengeful. Impalement, a method not often spoken of in Christendom, yet whispered from the east, from the lands of Wallachia. I saw it once, when envoys from that cursed land sought to teach a lesson. A sharpened stake driven through the body, from below, emerging through shoulder or mouth. The victim does not die swiftly, no. He lingers, writhing, skewered like meat upon a spit, sometimes for days. His own weight drives him further down the stake until at last he is still. I did not perform this act myself, but I watched, and the vision haunts me still. The silence of the victim, broken only by hoarse moans, the smell of blood and filth, the ghastly stillness as death approached. It was a thing from nightmares. And yet, some executions are quiet, almost merciful in their swiftness. A stab to the heart, a swift garrote, a sudden push from a height. These are not the methods sung of or recorded in great ledgers, but they exist, whispered in alleys, carried out in shadows. Not all deaths are spectacles. Some are secrets. But you asked of the Middle Ages, and so I give you the truth of those times. Death was a teacher. Every execution was a sermon, every scaffold a pulpit, every pyre a blazing scripture. We, the executioners, were the priests of mortality, reminding all who watched that sin has a price, that rebellion is crushed, that faith burns hotter than flesh. And yet, when I lay down my axe, when I wash the blood from my hands, I wonder, who is more damned, the condemned, or I who delivers them to their end? Confession of the Executioner, Part 2. You would think that after so many deaths, a man's heart would grow numb, that the soul would harden like leather, immune to pity or fear. Perhaps it has, in part. And yet, I confess that each method carries its own ghosts. Each leaves a different scar upon my memory. I have broken men upon wheels, cut their throats, burned their bodies, but it is their eyes I remember most. Those desperate, pleading eyes that seem to ask not for life, but simply for a mercy I am not allowed to give. There was one punishment seldom used, but I have carried it out. Flaying. The stripping of the skin from the living body. It is not swift, nor is it neat. The condemned is tied, stretched upon a frame, and with a blade I begin at the limbs, peeling back the flesh as though from an animal. The screams are unlike any other, raw and high, breaking into sobs until the throat can no longer give voice. Blood runs in rivulets, but it is not the loss of it that kills. It is the agony, the shock, the body betraying itself. Sometimes they lived long enough to see the strips of their own skin held up before their fading eyes. Flaying was reserved for traitors and those who offended kings in ways that could not be forgiven. I performed it only twice, and I pray never again, though my prayers have long since grown hollow. Boiling alive, yes, the pot is gallows. In the reign of Henry, there was a decree that those who poisoned should die by the cauldron. I remember the heavy iron kettle set above the fire, the water bubbling and hissing, the condemned forced within. Sometimes they were dropped entire, sometimes lowered limb by limb. The steam alone scalds, raising blisters before flesh even touches the water. And once immersed, the body thrashes, the skin sloughs, the air fills with a stench like cooking meat. The crowd reacts strangely to boiling. Some wretch unable to watch. Others lean closer, eager as if at a grotesque feast. The condemned seldom lasted long, but long enough for their shrieks to echo in the memory of all who stood witness. Crushing is another art of death. Perhaps you have heard of pressing with stones, called peine forte et dure. It is said to compel confessions, or to punish those who will not plead. The body is laid flat, and stones are placed upon the chest, one by one, each heavier than the last. At first the breath comes in gasps, the ribs bowing, the voice reduced to a thin cry. As the weight grows, bones snap, lungs collapse, eyes bulge from their sockets. I once saw a man refuse to enter a plea, knowing that if he did, his family would lose their land. He endured the stones until his chest caved like rotten wood. His last words, barely audible, were not of fear but of defiance. The crowd murmured in awe, for in his death he had triumphed, though I was the one who set each stone upon him. There is also the gibbet, where the condemned is hung not to die swiftly, but to rot in chains for all to see. Sometimes they are hanged first, then caged. Other times, left alive to starve within the iron frame. I remember the clanking of chains in the wind, the body swaying, the skin turning first blue, then black, then falling away in strips as the birds and insects fed. Travelers would cross themselves when passing such a sight, for the gibbet was both warning and curse. Even after death, the body spoke, Here is what becomes of thieves and killers. In time, the bones fell from the cage, and I would gather them, though the stench clung to me for days. Perhaps you wonder if women fared differently. In truth, their punishments were often the same, yet there were those devised especially for them. The ducking stool, for example. A woman accused of gossip, of scolding, or of witchcraft might be bound to a chair and dunked repeatedly into the water, to cleanse her tongue or reveal the devil's hold. I operated such a stool once, lowering the shrieking figure into the river while the crowd jeered. If she drowned, they said she was innocent. If she lived, then she was surely a witch. It mattered little, most did not survive long. I still hear their coughing, the choking gasps as they fought for air, the river swallowing their cries. Do you know of the Spanish chair? A seat of iron fitted with spikes upon the back, the arms, the legs. The condemned was stripped and bound within, and sometimes fire was lit beneath the chair until flesh blistered and skin fused to metal. I witnessed it but once, when a foreign noble was sent to our lands as warning. His screams rang like bells, each one sharper than the last, until at last he sagged, a broken heap upon his iron throne. The smell was unbearable, a mingling of sweat, blood, and charred skin. There are tales, too, of the brazen bull, though whether it belonged truly to our Middle Ages or to older times I cannot say. They say it was a hollow bronze beast, into which the victim was sealed, and fire set beneath so that the body roasted within. The screams, it is told, echoed through pipes to sound like the bellowing of an angry bull. I never saw it, but men whispered of it in taverns and markets, and I believe such a device could have existed. For in my time cruelty knew no limits. Yet, among all the torments, it is not always the act itself that horrifies, but the waiting. Many a man has trembled upon the scaffold long before I raised my hand. The fear of what is to come gnaws deeper than the blade itself. I have seen men soil themselves at the sight of the rope, women faint before the torch was even lit. The mind, I think, suffers most. The condemned writhe in their own imagination, conjuring horrors worse than even I could invent. And still the people come. They gather as if to a fair, bringing children upon their shoulders, carrying meat pies and jugs of ale. The executions are not secret. They are theater, a spectacle of death. The Lord's decree I strike, the mob cheers. But when the sun sets and the crowd disperses, I am left with silence. Only I hear the echo of the screams. Only I wash the blood from my tools. I have no priest to shrive me, no friend to comfort me. I sleep with ghosts for company. Sometimes I wonder if I am worse than those I kill. The thief steals bread. The murderer takes a single life in passion or rage. But I have ended hundreds, and I am praised for it. They call me servant of justice, yet I feel more servant of death. There is a smell that never leaves you, the mingling of blood, smoke, and burning flesh, clings to the skin, the beard, the nails. Even when I walk among men in the marketplace, I see them wrinkle their noses as though they sense it. Some cross themselves when I pass, fearing contagion, as though my very touch might summon the gallows. I have become an outcast in plain sight, necessary yet despised. And yet I continue. For what else am I? The hangman, the headsman, the butcher of souls. If I laid down my axe, another would take it up. Justice does not pause for conscience. The lords would see their verdicts carried out, with or without me. Perhaps I spare some small mercy, a swift stroke where another would draw it out. But in the end, the bodies still fall, the fires still burn. So listen well, these are the methods of our age. Not tales from distant lands, but the very tools of order that hold our world together. Without the gallows, the wheel, the pyre, men would run wild. Fear is the chain that binds them, and I am the smith who forges it. But know this, every link is made of bone and blood. Confession of the Executioner, Part 3. They say there is a difference between justice and cruelty, but after so many years in service of death, I can no longer see where one ends and the other begins. The lords call it order, the priests call it cleansing, and the people call it spectacle. I only know it as work. Yet each method leaves its own taste upon the air, its own shadow on the soul. Have you heard of scaphism? It is said to come from Persia, yet in whispers I have known it spoken here too. The condemned is trapped between two boats or within a hollowed log, their head, hands, and feet protruding. They are force-fed milk and honey until their belly swells and rebels. Their skin is smeared with honey as well, and the insects come, flies, wasps, ants. The victim rots alive, eaten slowly by crawling things, their own filth breeding maggots within them. I did not administer such a death, but I have spoken with soldiers who claim to have seen it done during the Crusades. Their faces paled as they spoke, for it is not a death of hours, but of days, perhaps weeks. To imagine the mind trapped so, unable to move, devoured inch by inch, that is torment enough. Closer to home, I recall the saw. Yes, a simple tool of carpenter and woodsman, turned to purpose by hands that lusted for vengeance. I have seen men strung upside down, legs apart, and the saw drawn slowly down through the body, beginning between the thighs. Hung thus, the blood rushes to the head, keeping the victim conscious far longer than nature would allow. The teeth of the saw bite into flesh, then sinew, then bone, while the condemned shrieks like a beast. By the time the saw reaches the belly, most have gone silent, though some endure beyond all reason. I remember one such soul, a heretic who spat defiance even as the saw tore through him. He called out curses to the end, and I wondered whether the devil himself held his tongue. Tarring and feathering. A humiliation more than a death, though it often led to the grave nonetheless. Hot pitch poured upon the skin, the flesh blistering, the body rolled in feathers, paraded through the streets while the mob jeered. Many did not survive the burns or the beating that followed. I saw one man tarred alive for theft. His screams echoed against the stone walls, but the laughter of the crowd drowned them out. Some say such punishment is lighter than fire or axe, but humiliation cuts deeper than steel, and the body often succumbs after the mind has broken. There is a cruelty more intimate still, the garrote, a simple seat, a collar of iron or cord tightened from behind until life is choked away. It is not the sudden drop of hanging, but a slow constriction, the breath stolen inch by inch. I have tightened the screw myself, watching the eyes bulge, the lips turn blue, the last rattle slip forth. It is a quiet death, almost gentle compared to fire or wheel, and yet to sit behind a man and feel his life ebb beneath your hands, that is a weight I cannot easily bear. In my travels I once heard tale of the Judas cradle, a pyramid of wood, its tip sharp and cruel. The condemned is stripped, bound, and lowered upon it, impaled by his own weight, the pressure tearing slowly at flesh. Sometimes water or oil is poured upon the seat to prolong the torment. I never saw it used in my own city, but the inquisitors spoke of it in hushed tones, as though ashamed yet fascinated. There are many tools devised in secrecy, things whispered in the dungeons where screams are swallowed by stone. And yet, for all these devices, it is often the simplest things that leave the deepest scar. I remember a boy, no older than 16, accused of theft. He was hanged before the market crowd, but the rope was too long. He fell, the knot slipped, and his ankle snapped upon the ground. He crawled, gasping, pleading for mercy, but the sheriff ordered me to string him up again. I lifted him, set the noose anew, and this time the drop was short. He kicked for near 5 minutes before going still. That night, I could not eat, for his wide, terrified eyes burned behind my own. What device is crueler than mere rope, when wielded without care? The Church has its refinements, too. The Inquisition's pear, a metal device, inserted into the mouth or other orifices, then expanded by screw until flesh tore and bone cracked. I found one such instrument in the chest of an inquisitor, its metal slick with age and use. It is a silent torment, hidden within the body, a thing seldom seen by the crowd but no less horrific. I have seen mouths torn open, jaws broken, throats shredded. The condemned dies not only of pain but of shame, for such devices are designed not merely to kill but to degrade. Another cruelty is branding, the iron heated until white, pressed against flesh until it hisses and smokes. For thieves it is the hand, for heretics the face, for adulterers the body. I have pressed the iron myself, hearing the hiss, smelling the stench of charred skin. The mark lingers not only upon flesh but upon the soul, for the branded live on as walking warnings, their shame burned into them for all to see. Some did not survive the infection, and so the brand became execution all the same. I would be false if I did not tell you of stoning, though it is more common among mobs than courts. I have seen crowds turn upon a man, pelting him with rocks until his skull burst like a rotten gourd. Women and children throw as eagerly as men, the blood frenzy taking them. The victim begs, shields his head, but stone after stone finds him until he lies unmoving, his body torn and mangled. There is no craft in it, no order, only chaos. Yet, it is the truest form of execution, for it shows what lies in the hearts of men when law unchains them, the lust to kill. But there are darker whispers still, things I dare scarcely speak. Tales of men buried alive, sealed in walls as foundations for castles, their souls trapped within stone. Stories of witches walled into crypts, of nobles sealed in coffins with rats, their flesh gnawed in the dark. Whether true or not, I cannot say, but I have heard cries from beneath floors, moans from behind walls, and I wonder if such tales are more than fable. I am haunted not only by the deaths I gave, but by those I refused. Once, a woman accused of witchcraft fell to her knees before me, clutching my legs, her eyes wide with terror. "Strike quickly," she begged. "Spare me the fire." I looked to the priest, but he shook his head. She was to burn, for her ashes would purify her soul. I bound her to the stake with hands that trembled, and when the torch was set, I turned my face away. Her screams carried on the wind long after her body was ash. That night, I dreamed of her voice, calling my name from the flames. Tell me, do you still think the executioner is but a servant? Or do you see now that he is a prisoner, chained not by iron but by duty, bound to deeds that blacken his soul? I am the hand of justice, but my hands are stained. And when I meet God, if ever I do, I fear he will not see the crimes of the condemned, only mine. Confession of the Executioner, Part 4. There are nights when I wake in sweat, convinced I hear the crack of bone, the hiss of fire, the roar of the crowd. Yet I am alone, save for the shadows on the wall. I know these sounds too well to mistake them. They are not dreams, but memories that will not die, ghosts rattling their chains within me. And the worst of it is this: I was not always forced. Times I chose. I honed my blade, I tightened the rope, I struck with precision, proud of my craft. The lords praised me, the people feared me, and I mistook both for honor. Only now do I see it for what it is: a mask worn over damnation. There are punishments foreign to our soil, yet I have seen them or heard of them in whispers carried by soldiers and merchants. In the East there is talk of Ling Chi, the death of 1,000 cuts. The body is bound upright, and with each stroke a sliver of flesh is taken. First from the limbs, then the chest, the face, the belly. Slice after slice until the victim is more wound than man. Some say opium is given, not to ease the pain, but to prolong life, to keep them aware as their body is carved into nothingness. I never wielded such a knife, but when the tale was told to me, I shivered, for the cruelty of men knows no borders. Closer to home, there is the ordeal of hot iron. A man accused of crime is made to carry a bar of iron heated until it glows, his hands blistering and burning. Then his wounds are bound, and if after days they fester, he is guilty. If they heal clean, he is innocent. I have overseen such ordeals, watching men stagger and cry as the skin of their palms curled away like parchment. Few healed cleanly. The body tells its own truth, and it is rarely merciful. Yet the crowd believes what it sees, and so the law is satisfied. Once I was ordered to oversee an execution by crucifixion. It is an old death, a Roman death, but it has not vanished entirely. The man was a deserter, taken from the army and nailed to wooden beams. His hands were pierced, his feet driven through with spikes, and the cross raised upright. He hung there for hours, sagging, gasping, the weight of his own body tearing at his wounds. I stood beneath him, hearing him plead for water, but none was given. When at last he died, the crows swooped before we could cut him down. I thought of Christ, yes, but more than that, I thought of how men will imitate even the cruelties of their enemies if it suits them. Not all deaths go as planned. I remember a noble sentence to be burned, but the wood was damp, and the fire smoldered instead of roaring. Smoke choked him, blackening his face, while the flames licked slowly, refusing to consume. The crowd grew restless, some shouting to end it, others laughing at the pitiful sight. I was ordered to strike him down, to put him from his misery, but the priest forbade it. The fire must take him, for only fire cleanses. It was near 2 hours before his body stilled. To this day, when I smell smoke from a hearth, I think of his blistered skin, his wild eyes rolling in despair. There was another time, a hanging that went awry. The rope snapped, and the condemned fell hard upon the ground. The crowd gasped, then roared with laughter. The man staggered to his feet, blood streaming from his nose, and shouted that God had spared him. For a moment, even I believed it might be so, but the sheriff ordered me to string him up again, and the second rope held. The crowd cheered as he kicked, and their cheers drowned his cries. Tell me, where is God in that? And there are tales, oh tales I scarce dare repeat. Tales of famine when men fed upon men, and execution was not only punishment but harvest. I have heard of rebels slain and their bodies carved, roasted, devoured by those driven mad with hunger. In the dungeons, I have seen rats set upon prisoners, gnawing their flesh in the dark. Some say there were lords who unleashed dogs upon the condemned, letting them be torn apart for sport. Whether these are truths or fevered rumors, I do not know, but I have seen enough to believe that man is capable of such hungers. One device I have seen, cruel in its simplicity, was the collar of spikes, a band of iron lined with inward teeth, locked around the neck. The victim could neither lie down nor sleep, for every movement drove the spikes deeper. Days passed, and they grew weak, starved, delirious, until at last they perished. I found one such soul slumped against the wall, his neck a ring of festering wounds, his eyes glassy with madness. To think that a circle of metal could unmake a man so thoroughly, it chilled me more than the axe ever did. There is also the pillory, though many see it as mere humiliation. The condemned is locked by head and hands, left in the square as the mob pelts him with filth, rotten food, stones, and words fouler still. Some die of thirst, others of beating, some of shame so deep they hang themselves after release. I once passed by a woman left in the pillory for witchcraft. Her face was swollen from blows, her body spattered with waste. Children danced about her, mocking, while her eyes stared hollow at nothing. A slow death, but no less cruel for its slowness. And still the people come. Always they come. They cheer, they jeer, they feast while others burn. It is not justice they seek, but spectacle. I am their actor, the scaffold their stage, the condemned their entertainment. And they would have it so, for if they did not watch, perhaps they would think too hard on the fate that might one day be theirs. Better to laugh at another's pain than imagine one's own. I tell you true, each execution is a mirror. The rope shows us our fear of theft, the axe our fear of treason, the fire our fear of heresy. The condemned is not only punished for his crime, but made symbol of what we all dread becoming. And I, the executioner, am the hand that lifts the mirror. Yet the mirror shows me, too. I see myself in every man who begs, in every woman who weeps. I feel the rope at my own neck, the blade at my own throat, the fire at my own feet. I wonder if one day I shall kneel before another man's axe, my sins laid bare, my own head rolling upon the straw. Would the crowd cheer then? Would they laugh at the butcher butchered? Perhaps they would. Perhaps they should. For though I have served the law, I have also served death, and death is no just master. It takes the guilty and the innocent alike, and I am its priest, baptizing the earth with blood. So I speak now not to glorify, but to confess. These are the ways men die in our time. by rope, by axe, by fire, by will, by saw, by spike, by water, by iron, by shame. 1,000 ways to end a soul, and I have seen most of them. My hands are heavy with memory, my nights darker than any dungeon. I am haunted not only by those I killed, but by those who lived, the ones left broken, scarred, branded, humiliated. They walk among us still, living reminders of what waits for us all. If you ask me what justice is, I can only laugh. Justice is a word for the living. The dead care little whether they were hanged or burned or torn asunder. Their pain is over, but mine endures. For every scream I delivered, I carry still. Every eye that met mine before the blade fell, I remember. Every prayer that went unanswered, I hear still in the silence. Do you envy me my craft? Do not. Do you condemn me for it? Perhaps you should. But remember this. It was not I who made the laws, nor I who demanded blood. I am but the hand. The crowd is the heart. The lords are the mind. The priests the voice. And together we have built a world where death is the mortar that holds our stones together. But mortar crumbles. Stone cracks. And when it falls, perhaps it is I who shall be beneath it. Confession of the Executioner, Part 5. I sometimes think death walks beside me like an old companion, not in the manner of priests who speak of angels of mercy, nor as the peasants whisper of demons that snatch the soul. No, death to me is a figure clothed in rags of smoke and bone, its hands always outstretched, its face never seen. I do not fear it as others do. I have stared too long into its mouth, but I hear it whisper, and in the quiet of night I feel it lean close, as though to remind me that one day it shall take not just those I bind, but me as well. The worst hauntings are not from those who cursed me, but from those who forgave. I remember a man condemned for murder, though he swore to the end it was in defense. When I raised my axe, he looked upon me not with hatred, but with pity, and whispered, "It is not your fault." His head fell with a single stroke, but his words remained. I hear them still, soft as breath in my ear. Not my fault? Then whose? The sheriffs who judged him? The priests who condemned him? Or is it always the fault of the hand that falls? I dream often of the wheel. I hear bones breaking, the thud of the cudgel, the gasps that fade into gurgles. In sleep, it is not the bandit lashed to the spokes but myself, twisted, contorted, my limbs bending the wrong way as the crows gather. Sometimes I wake screaming, my body aching as though struck. I rise to wash my face, but in the water's reflection I see not my own eyes, but theirs, the eyes of every man I shattered, staring from beneath the surface unblinking. I tell myself I was necessary, that without me chaos would reign. But when I walk among the people, I see how they shrink back, how mothers tug their children close. They call me a servant of justice, yet I am unclean, untouchable. No tavern welcomes me long, no woman dares my bed. I am needed but never wanted, like the plague that cleanses by killing. And so I sit alone, and in solitude the voices grow loud. There was one voice louder than all. A witch, they said, though I thought her only a woman too wise for her own good. She was old, with hair white as snow and eyes black as pitch. When they bound her to the stake, she laughed. Even as the fire caught, she laughed, her voice sharp and shrill. You think you burn me? She cried. Nay, I shall burn you. And when the flames consumed her, her laughter became a howl that echoed in the smoke. I swear to you, I hear it still. At times I smell smoke with no fire near, and I feel heat upon my skin though the hearth lies cold. She lingers. She waits. It is said that executioners are cursed, and I believe it. My father was one before me, and his father before him. The craft is passed down, for who else will take it? When my father died, his hands were black with callous, his eyes sunken from drink, his mouth twisted as though still shouting. He died alone, and none dared bury him save me. I dug the hole myself, and as I lowered him in, I wondered if one day I too would be buried with no prayer, no stone, no mourner. Perhaps I shall not even have that. Perhaps I will hang from my own rope, or burn in my own pyre, left to ashes on the wind. There are things I have not told even the priests, though they demand my confessions. Once, long ago, a man offered me coin to falter in my duty. His brother was condemned to hang, and he begged me to loosen the knot, to shorten the drop, to make it quick and painless. I refused, for my oath was to the law, not to mercy. When the day came, I tied the rope true, and the brother kicked and struggled for long minutes before he was still. Afterward, the man spat at me and swore I had killed not one brother but two. For indeed, I felt as though I had slain them both. Another time I failed. A noble condemned to be beheaded placed his trust in my hand, and my axe faltered. Not once, but twice, the blade struck, and still he lived, groaning, his neck torn but not severed. The crowd howled for my blood, and I, in my panic, struck a third time before his head rolled. For weeks after, I could not sleep, and when I closed my eyes I saw his face, not in anger but in despair, as though I had betrayed him. And perhaps I had. For what is worse than to die clumsily, your last breath stretched out by another's error? I sometimes wander to the gallows at night, when no one watches. I touch the wood, worn smooth by countless ropes, stained darker where bodies have brushed. I hear the creak of the beams, the whisper of wind through the nooses left to dangle. And in that stillness, I feel the gallows breathe, as if alive, as if it remembers every neck that bent beneath it. I think the scaffold feeds on us all, on the condemned, on the crowd, on me. It grows fat on fear and grief, and one day it will claim me too. There are rumors that some executioners turn to the bottle, or to madness, or to the knife upon themselves. I understand why. To kill so many is to be hollowed out, and when the hollowness grows too wide, the soul falls in. I drink, yes, but it does not silence the voices. I pray, but heaven seems deaf. I dream, but the dreams are only screams. So I sit, and I write, though none will read. My words are my only absolution, my only proof that I was more than a shadow with an axe. And yet, I wonder, what if I had refused? What if, the first time I was handed the rope, I had cast it aside? They would have killed me, yes, but I would have died clean, unburdened. Instead, I lived, and each day I live, I kill. My survival is built upon the corpses of others, stacked so high I cannot see the sky beyond them. Do you know the weight of 10,000 eyes, all staring, all pleading, all condemning? I do. They follow me through the streets, though the faces are strangers. They crowd my chamber at night, whispering, groaning, hissing. I feel their breath on my neck, their fingers on my skin, cold as grave earth. Sometimes I think I am already dead, that I swing still upon a rope, and this life is only the echo of my hanging. If so, then this confession is not for men, but for whatever lies beyond. Perhaps God will read it, or perhaps the devil will laugh over it. Perhaps no one will, and my words will rot like my body. Yet still I write, for silence is worse. Silence is the gallows without the rope, the fire without the flame, a waiting void. So let me end this passage with a truth I have learned, truer than any law or sermon. There is no justice. There is only power, and power demands blood. Always blood. It wears many masks. King, priest, mob, even executioner. But beneath each mask, the same mouth drinks, the same teeth tear. I have fed it, and in feeding it I have become it. Perhaps when I die, there will be no heaven, no hell, only the faces of those I slew, waiting to greet me. And perhaps that is justice after all. Confession of the Executioner, Part 6, the last words. I feel my hand grow heavy as I write, the quill dragging like a weight of iron. My fingers tremble, my breath shortens, and each word feels carved from me like flesh from the bone. Perhaps it is fitting. I have carved enough lives away, and now I carve my own confession into parchment, my final execution. It is quiet tonight, but not the quiet of peace. No, it is the quiet of the gallows before dawn, when the condemned waits in his cell, hearing only his own breath, knowing it is numbered. That is the silence I feel now, and I know why. My time is near. I feel it in the marrow, as certain as the hangman feels the knot tighten, as sure as the headsman feels the axe bite. Death is at the door, and this time it comes for me. I do not know what sentence I shall face. Perhaps no man will condemn me, but time itself has passed judgment. My body aches, my chest burns, and I cannot walk the scaffold without feeling my knees weaken. Some nights I cough until blood stains my lips, and I think, ah, so it is the fire within that will consume me. Other times I wake with a choking in my throat, as though the noose already tightens, and I claw at nothing, gasping. Always I see their faces. Always I hear their cries. Perhaps this is their revenge. Not swift, but slow. 1,000 deaths folded into one. Do you know what I saw last eve? I swear upon the ashes of my father. It was no dream. I rose to piss, and as I passed the window, I saw a crowd in the square. The torches burned, the scaffold loomed, and the mob waited. Yet there was no sound, no murmur, no breath. They stood as statues, eyes fixed upon me. I pressed my face to the glass, and in that silence I knew them. Every man and woman I had sent below, all gathered, all waiting. And in the center, upon the scaffold, a noose swung. Not empty, waiting, waiting for me. I stumbled back, the sweat cold upon me, and when I looked again the square was empty, dark as ever. But I know what I saw. I know who waits. My hands shake so I can barely hold the pen. But I must finish. I must. My father used to say an executioner must never falter, for the crowd will never forgive clumsiness. And though I have faltered in the flesh, I shall not falter now in words. This is my last duty, and I must see it through. Let me tell you of the worst death I ever gave. Not in pain, but in innocence. A child, no older than 12, accused of theft. He swore he had taken only bread for his starving mother. The law said theft was death, and so the rope was readied. The crowd cheered, for the law was satisfied, but I tied the knot with hands that felt not my own. When the trap fell and his body jerked, something in me broke. I saw not a thief, but a boy who might have been my own son, had fate been kinder. I buried him in my heart, but his small face has never left me. He stands at the edge of every dream, watching, silent. He does not forgive. Since that day, every execution has felt like another stone upon my chest. Rope, axe, will, stake, all the same. I delivered them as ordered, but with each I felt my soul shrivel, like parchment held too close to flame. And now, at last, there is little left of me but ash. They say the executioner dies as he lived. Some are hanged by their own rope, some broken on their own wheel, some burned in their own fire. I wonder what fate awaits me. Perhaps I shall die alone in this chamber, quill in hand, my body rotting before it is found. Perhaps the mob will turn one day, and I shall feel the cudgel on my bones, the stones on my flesh. Perhaps the Lord himself will strike me, casting me into the fire I have tended for so many. But whatever comes, I know this, I deserve no mercy. I have taken mercy from too many. I hear footsteps, light, soft, but steady. They move where no footsteps should, for I am alone. The candle gutters, the shadows stretch, and I feel a presence behind me. I dare not turn, for I know what I shall see. Not man, but the host of those I slew, gathered to claim their due. My quill scratches faster, my heart pounds, and still the steps draw closer. The air grows cold. I smell smoke, blood, iron. The sounds rise. A creak of rope, the crack of bone, the roar of fire. All the scaffold speaks at once, and I am drowning in it. I hear my name shouted, cursed, whispered. The boy's face swims before me. The witch's laughter shrieks. The noble's broken groan echoes. And I know they have come. Death leans close. I feel its breath, cold and fetid, on my neck. My hand stiffens, the quill falls, and the page blurs with darkness. My final words must be plain, for there is no time left. I was the hand, but the hand was guilty. Forgive me or damn me, it matters not. For the rope swings, the axe falls, the fire burns, and the crowd roars. And I go to join them. Written by my own hand, the last confession of an unnamed man, who was executioner in life and condemned in death.